I'm Rachel, and here's my brother. He's in Challenge B this year, so he did Challenge A last year, and I'm in Challenge 4 this year. Both of us have been doing CC for a long time. I started in 2nd grade, and he's done it the entire way, right? I think you started like in kindergarten. And so we're going to give a perspective on Challenge A and give some advice and talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, so you can decide whether it's a good fit for you and your family. So first off, I want to talk about giving like an overview of what Challenge A looks like. It has 6 subjects compared to Foundations and Essentials, which are the younger ages. They have about the same amount, but it's less work.
Yeah.
And so
a lot less work.
Yeah. So they have the 6 subjects: math, Latin, research, which is their science strand, exposition, which is the English strand, reasoning, which is kind of their elective logic strand,
and then debate, which is cartography, which
history.
is
and
drawing the world.
Yeah, and Challenge A, it's cartography, geography, drawing the world, like you said, and the reasoning is analogies, and fallacy detective, just logic, and the exposition literature strand
It's LTW.
Yeah, Lost Tools of Writing program. Let's go ahead and start off and just give some of our best advice. If you're going to tell a Challenge A student one thing or a Challenge A family one thing, what would you tell them?
Don't slack out on work, because the worst thing that can happen is that you get behind and then you're stuck behind, and there's not a easy way for you to catch up, and that can be especially hard on subjects like Latin or cartography or exposition or something like that, because it just keeps following, and if you're not up with it, then you kind of get left behind, and it gets a lot harder. And especially in Latin, since you'll use it for B and Challenge B and 1 and 2. And so,
yeah. I think even if you do get behind, it's important that you don't skip steps in order to make up for it, because that's going to make the problem even worse. Like if you have to, just slow down and use breaks and like work some over break when other students aren't, so you can catch back up. Because at the end of the day, like if you can't learn the basics of Latin, you're gonna really struggle when you get into Challenge B and Challenge 1. And that goes for the same with the other subjects. For me, I would say for like best advice for a student, it would be doing your flashcards, especially in Challenge A and Challenge B. But for Latin, I feel like that was the difference between the students who knew what they're doing and the students that didn't. Just doing your flashcards 2 to 3 times a week really helps, knowing those vocab words. And it goes the same thing for cartography. If you go through your flashcards fairly regularly, then you're going to have really no problem drawing the world, or at least labeling the things on the world at the very end of the year. But I think for parents, I'd say stay engaged with your student, because I see a lot of people checking out, because in Challenge you can start dropping your kids off and you don't have to go to school with them each day. And it's easy to check out at home as well and not really pay attention to what your student is doing, but continue reading through their papers, checking their Latin homework, making sure they've done anything before going to class each week. Because it'll keep them accountable, because it's not the job of the director to do that so much as the parent. Did you feel like Foundations and Essentials prepared you well for starting Challenge A?
Yes, especially in Latin. If you have kids or are a kid in Foundations and Essentials, learn your Latin. It's extremely important, and you'll thank yourself. I think it prepared me pretty well. I don't think it covered absolutely everything, but it's worth paying attention to.
Yeah. I feel like the writing, like the research papers and stuff, would have been, and even LTW would have been super hard if I had essentials.
Yeah.
And like the student resource packet I still use, and trying to do a 1 to 2 paragraph essay every single week would have been super hard for me if I hadn't done essentials. So like if you're looking to do Challenge A, make sure your child is comfortable with writing, they've done some kind of writing program, even if they haven't done essentials before. I felt like it really prepared me well there.
Yeah, like if we only did 1 to 2 paragraph essays each week, now in Challenge B, you do probably 2 to 5 paragraph research essay every week, and then a 5-paragraph essay every 3 weeks, and so
Just steps you up.
mm-hmm.
What did you do other than foundations and essentials to prepare you to go to Challenge A? And what things would you suggest other families do? And I can answer this question first. If you want.
Yeah.
Okay. So like I did a little bit of Latin over the summer, but not very much, not as much as Grayson did. I think that probably helped him. I only did like a little bit. And I did read a lot of the books over the summer, which I would say it's very helpful if you can stay ahead in the literature books, because it's not a ton of work if your child likes to read, but if they don't like to read, it is a lot while they're trying to juggle the other subjects. So just getting 2 or 3 books ahead will help the child a lot as they're gearing up for Challenge A.
Mm-hmm. I'd say reading is one of the hardest things to get behind, or like
Catch up on.
hardest things to catch up on, because when you go to class and you haven't finished the book, everybody's talking about parts you haven't read, and you're like, and you're kind of clueless, and so being ahead, at least on something like that, is very helpful.
The next thing I want to talk about is how long did it take you to do your strands each day? Because that's one of the big things I hear in complaints, especially on YouTube or other forms of social media, is that it's taking people a lot of time to do today. You already kind of mentioned that's a lot of time, or a lot more time than foundations and essentials. And so how much time did it actually take you?
Usually I would finish from 1 to 2 o'clock.
And what time would you start?
I would usually start at 7:30 to 7:45. Wait.
I don't know about that.
Wait. Oh no, I started at 8. Yeah. I woke up at 7:30 and 7 o'clock. I started at 8, and I would say for like math and Latin, I would take an hour. I'd say take an hour on the harder subjects and maybe 30 to 45 minutes on the easier subjects. For instance, like reasoning. And
reasoning's the easiest.
Yeah, reasoning is definitely the easiest. I'd say take no less than 30 minutes on that, but on Latin, I'd say 45 minutes to an hour, math, an hour at least.
Yeah, I would agree with that, is that I feel like your core subjects are going to take more time. I'll talk about math a little bit in a second. I don't think you'll be using the math curriculum as your only math, so assuming you do have some other supplement, math will probably take you around an hour. Foreign language, Latin will probably take you around an hour, which a lot of colleges are now starting to call that a core subject as well. Research, the science component, should take you around an hour. It may take you a little bit less than, just depending on how fast your child writes, how much time they put into their creative artwork each week, and how long it takes them to do science fair, of course. Law skills of writing probably took me around an hour each day between the reading and the writing, but I enjoyed that subject. It wasn't a big deal. And cartography was fairly similar, though if your student is really fast at memorizing things, then it might take less time as well.
Yeah.
But that's the history subject again.
And
so 5.5 hours each day or so. I started my schoolwork usually around 8 each day, and then 5.5 hours. That would put me at 1:30 plus lunch break is 2. And then I would do music, and then I would stop at around 3. I think a lot of students have a harder time with the length of the challenge days because they tend to procrastinate, and a lot of students still are waking up really late, like 9 a.m., 10 a.m., like they would in elementary school or in 6th grade, because they could in foundations and essentials.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in Challenge A, it's really a good time to start enforcing a stricter wake-up time school starting time. Mm-hmm. So the next thing I want to talk about is the involvement of the director and the parent, because that's also another thing that I hear talked about both online and then also in the classroom, is disagreements on how a director or a parent should operate with their child or with the child in the class. And I can tell you, just based on my opinion of the CC model and my experience in my classes, the director generally is not the one grading, not the one checking the work. They're there for accountability to some extent. They do give a progress report, but they're there to be an encouragement to the student and to be a second person to go to for advice.
And maybe to introduce work, but not check up on what you have been doing or what you have not been doing.
Yeah.
I'd say, that is a job for the parent to enforce, like, the how much you learn, how much you don't, what you're doing, and parent
parent grades, and also it's the parent's ultimate authority if what a student does and what a student doesn't. Like, I don't encourage you to tell your student to drop a subject, especially in Challenge A, or not read half the books or something, because that can be a detriment to the class. But it is the ultimate authority of the parent what the student does and doesn't, versus like in a traditional public school system, the teacher in the class, the director, would have that authority. In classroom conversations, Challenge A, the director doesn't. But they're there to be a sounding board, I think, for the parent. And because the parent hasn't done it multiple times, oftentimes it's their first or their second time doing it, they can go to their director for advice, who has done it multiple times. Usually can help guide the student along, especially for like science fair, which is a big thing. Now I'm gonna go through each of the strands, strand by strand, and I have some of the curriculum here physically. Some of the other things I'll just put on the screen because we don't have the curriculum books anymore. But first thing is math. What are your thoughts about math?
The math map's pretty fun, especially seeing the unseen, drawing. You get to draw a lot, be an artist, and math map is not very challenging, I'd say. If you want to be challenging, you can, because there's different sections you can do, but each week a new little booklet that you go through. You can do however much of it you want, and yeah, it goes through a lot more like dimensions and shapes than numbers and stuff.
Yeah. When I was doing Challenge A, my CC community was actually one of the original pilot communities with this curriculum, so I did get a chance to see it. They only fairly recently introduced it. They used to be using Saxon math, and my say with this is kind of a supplement. It's a great thing to have a conversation about. It's a great thing to be able to see God in math, and to give a student an idea of what's coming in math. But it should not be the only math curriculum, because it does not have traditional problems. It doesn't have enough problems for a student to really be learning so much. A lot of it's just seeing it, familiarizing themselves with it, learning the language and the vocabulary of the math without actually doing it themselves. So yeah, like my brother said, I would suggest maybe spending 15 minutes on it each day, prepping so you're familiar with it, so you can talk about it in class, but using some kind of supplemental math at home, such as many students already do, in order to ensure that your students still learning the things that they need to be prepared for high school. Next subject, we have Latin, and the workload for Latin, I guess you kind of already mentioned this, was about an hour a week. And so you have your first year Henley Latin book. It follows a classical Latin model. This is the grammar book my brother's holding, which you use for all the challenges if you do Latin all the way through. This is used for challenge 1 or A through 1. And then this is the workspace that's used. You have a workspace for challenge A, B, and 1, I believe. I'm not entirely sure about 1. But it just allows students to be able to write their exercises in somewhere other than a piece of paper. But these two are necessary.
Yeah, this is like what you translate and what you write, and this helps with that a lot. So definitely use these.
Yeah. What did you think of curriculum and like the Henley overall? Do you like Henley, or did you like
it was fun. Well, fun, and it wasn't overly challenging. It was not extremely easy. It's a pretty balanced subject. It's very important though, and especially in flashcards and doing separate things, like not just looking at the vocabulary in the book, but actually having a copy of that you can go through whenever you want is very helpful. And yeah, it's a pretty good subject.
Yeah. I think definitely if you want a classical learning style, Henley is great. I personally like classical learning, and just to share a little bit a secret, Latin was my favorite subject, at least through challenge 1, which a lot of people are like, how? And it's because I did the vocab cards, and I enjoy foreign language anyway. But I mean, if you don't really like a classical learning style, then it might not be a great fit for you. A lot of people don't see the point in learning Latin, and I would encourage you to learn Latin at least in challenge A and challenge B, but really go through challenge 1. Get through this purple book. It does help you a lot with learning other languages. It teaches you how to learn another language. Latin's one of the hardest languages to learn because of all the grammar rules. So if you can learn Latin, you can learn any other language. I personally also learned German, and Spanish. So I have a little bit of perspective on a non-Romance language and a Romance second language, and it helped me with both, I think. Learning vocab, learning grammar for both.
Spanish, which is probably the most common language to learn, but it helps a lot in Spanish. And even if you're not learning the language, you will still see many connections to the other languages and English.
Yeah, I think definitely it's worth learning Latin, even if you don't plan on speaking, reading, and writing it. So for science is kind of an interesting strand because in the first semester you start off writing research papers where you use this research journal to help sketch things out and create art projects to go with your papers each week. Each week you write paper on a different subject, so a lot of the time it's animals. So like you pick a mammal, you pick a bird one week, you pick
a different
astronomy
category
yeah.
of animal each week. Sometimes there's plants. And
this is great for like creative students who want to do artwork. It gives you a lot of freedom because you can just pick something that you're interested in, go to the library and find some books, and I really enjoyed that. It's probably one of my favorite things in the first semester, Challenge A. Second semester, well, kind of in between, starting first semester, ending mid-second semester, you have science fair.
Yes.
Which is the capstone project in Challenge A. Each challenge has a different capstone project. Yeah, I'm gonna let you talk a little about science fair.
So science fair, it's picking a subject and you'll pick a kind of project to do on. So the one I did was testing which creates more downforce on a car, a wing or a spoiler. So it's having a project, making a hypothesis about it.
You follow the scientific method.
Yeah, the scientific method. Then you will do the project, and so I made a wind tunnel and tested them and got some results. And do not pick a project that is overly challenging.
See, did it prepare you for research or science later this year?
I'd say science fair is a little different. That might come later in challenge, but for the first semester, definitely making a paper each week, 1 to 2, maybe even 3 paragraphs each week, and that's almost exactly what we do in Challenge B.
And so the third and final part of Challenge A in the second semester was anatomy, and you would learn a different system in the body. So like you would do the respiratory system one week, and you would do the nervous system one week,
or the musculatory system, or
lots of things.
Yeah.
You learn different body parts, and I think after a week or two, you come to class, you draw it, and you label it, kind of similar to cartography.
Yeah.
You did it a little bit different than I did. I memorized everything and I wrote it, drew it just like I would for cartography. I think you memorized how to draw it, right?
Yeah, we memorized how to draw and we drew at the end of the year, and we had like a skeleton person where we tack on the body parts, and so it's a very fun part of science.
Yeah.
It's not challenging, it's not hard, very easy, fun.
Yeah, I think
learning about your body.
I think not memorizing the words and exactly where they go and spelling and stuff, that's one way to scale back if your student needs it. If your student is able to go for it and memorize those body parts, I think that's great too. But yeah. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is LTW, Law Tools of Writing, and this book we actually continue using, I think, through Challenge 2. From Challenge A through Challenge 2. I don't have the book with me, so it's again on the screen. But it teaches students how to write a persuasive paper well and to write a college level persuasive paper. And so you kind of go through a portion of the book each year and you go further and further each time, similar to Challenge Latin. And it teaches you a lot of different devices. It teaches you how to create an outline and to do a good job in your papers. What did you think of the curriculum?
Very helpful. I'd say it's almost the exact same, and it's very similar to what you do in Challenge B. It's reading a book, doing an essay, reading a book, doing an essay. I'd say intermediate subject. It's not hard, but it's not a walk in the park, but it's very helpful in learning how to do that. Very important.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, it just leads right into other challenges. And it prepared me super well for, I did CC Plus and writing CC Plus essays. I think it would be hard to do any of the other exposition strands if you didn't have challenge A. The best advice for that is probably doing your Analogies charts thoroughly. And when a lot of students aren't doing the full length that's suggested in the guide, you should at least, once they tell students to start putting 20 items in their A charts, don't do less. Do at least 20. Require that for your student, because I would have a lot of students that would come to the class and they would have less than 10 items in each of their A and A chart columns, and then they just wouldn't be able to do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the last subject, which is debate or cartography. We have this big old cartography book here, which actually this year has come back in use in Challenge 4. But overall, what did you think of the workload?
It was, I'd say, it's also kind of a medium subject. Sometimes it can get a little harder with like how many times you're practicing it. But it's a fun subject. It's not it's not a pain to do. It's very fun. It's very fun to do in your class. It's very fun to show what you know about it. And yeah,
it's a fun subject. I think a lot of people also struggle to see how this is history, and how this is preparing people for later on. This is where I can say, as a Challenge 4 student, it's super helpful once you start learning American history, and especially world history, because when all these different locations and dates are being thrown out, you really want to know where things are. And so having this mental map in your head, even years later, I mean, it's still there. I still know where a lot of places are. Even if I couldn't point them exactly out on the globe, I know, okay, that's in Africa, or that's in Asia, or something like that. It just gives me a little bit more knowledge about the world. Best advice for this would probably just be doing your flashcards again. So as we wrap up, we went through our 6 subjects. For conclusion, what was your favorite subject in Challenge A?
Probably reasoning, but I know that'll be different when you go through Challenge A. But other than that, probably Latin or cartography. Latin, it made it a lot easier if you actually did flashcards and did the work. It made it so much easier, and it made it not really that hard if you actually put time and work into it.
As I already mentioned, my favorite subject was Latin. There wasn't really one I disliked. I'd have to say though.
Yeah, me too.
How do you feel Challenge A prepared you for Challenge B?
It prepared me pretty well overall. Yes, especially in the reading and writing subjects, and especially in Latin. I'd say essentials, foundations, you can't stress enough on learning your vocabulary in Latin and declensions, conjugations, whatever. But yeah, it prepared me very well.
Yeah. So I say especially in the English, because as you go further and further, the word length for all the essays is longer, the paragraph length is longer, the page length is longer, and the curriculum that CC uses for its literature is really excellent. Even the books that it goes through, we didn't really talk about the books too much, but they are a great introduction to some younger classics for children, and they help kids to like reading it, even if they haven't up to this point. And the last question I have is, how has it prepared you for other challenges beyond Challenge B? And I know you can't really answer that one. So I'll also say the English prepares you super well. Your cartography is great, especially as you get into world history, even for the other histories as well, like Western cultural history in Challenge 2, because that's also very much a international history subject. Latin, I mean, it's just one step into another. It prepares you super well. Math map continues the whole way. Research is a little bit different, but I think that's kind of how science is meant to be. Like in high school, you have physics one year, you have chemistry one year, and biology the next year, and they don't really relate to each other quite so much. But I will say it has helped me, again, with the writing. It has helped me be able to understand the things I see around me better, and still my exposure to get to anatomy and challenge. And then reasoning, definitely helped me. It was a fun subject, as I said, but it interested me, and I feel like it made me a more logical person all around. So, yeah, some things really helped lay it better for other challenges. Some things really just educated me and Challenge A where I was at. That's about all I have to say about Challenge A. I thought it was a great experience, and I thought it prepared me well for the other challenges. I didn't think it was too difficult, but you do have to be willing to buckle down, be motivated, and get the work done. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions for either Grayson or me, feel free to ask those in the comments below, and like and subscribe for more content on CC. So, bye and thank you.